A very good evening to you all and a very warm welcome to this, the fourth round of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series. We are, of course, at the beautiful Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, and speaking of beautiful, a man next to me is someone that needs no introduction. It's the one and only David Addison.
You're more than kind, Paul. Thank you. It's a trick of the light, I think, this beauty. It's a remarkable day at the Nürburgring. It's not raining, it's not cloudy, it's not misty, it's not hailing. It's actually good weather, which is not what the place is noted for. What it is noted for, though, is being tough on brakes at the end of the first sequence of corners as you plunge down towards the Dunlop curve, and it is also noted for being a real test for drivers. And we're in for a great race, but this fourth round of the championship, there's only one to go after this. We've got three different winners, so one different winner per round in the pro class, and two different winners out of three races in silver, and a really jumbled grid after qualifying that's put many of the fancied runners in the championship in pro way down the order.
Yeah, and we know the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit always produces exceptional racing, especially in these GT3 cars. And as you say, David, some of the fancied runners had a difficult qualification session, and with only a 60-minute race ahead of us, there's a lot of opportunity for drama, spectacle and excitement. So we're going to have a quick look at some of the stars that will be taking part in this series. Of course, we have a pro and a silver category as always. Big names that you will likely recognise at home. Drivers like Jaroslav Honzik, also known as Yardier, Luke Southall for STR Esports, Kamil Pawlowski for the ITB Thrustmaster Racing team. We have got Grantas Caracas for McLaren Veloce, all names that have been in and around the sim racing world for a very long time at the absolute forefront, and that always produces great racing.
And it's just as competitive in silver, isn't it? Valentin Barrier, twice a winner. And Wojtek Fiala, the championship leader, has had one win. He drives number 420, the Porsche, from the Williams Esports Fanatec squad. And then you've got Dario Yamulo, third in silver, and he's knocking on the door of a first victory. So it's going to be very competitive indeed as we get set for an hour of racing here at the Nürburgring.
Yep, so you're saying very competitive. Let's have a quick look at exactly how competitive it is. These are the point standings for our pro and silver classification. George Boothby, Mikhail Statsenko, 61 points apiece, only 10 points ahead of the chasing pack. So we're coming into this round with an absolute dead heat tie at the front of the field. And as we'll see in a minute, David, they have qualified very low indeed, so there's a big opportunity for someone to strike in as we look at the silver standings,
where you have Wojtek Fiala as the championship leader. He's got 91 points to the 75 of Valentin Barrier. Dario Yamulo is third ahead of Danila Cherepenin. Michael Romagnoli is fifth in the Aston Martin, which has had a weight break going into this race. And then Marco Jonkers, who didn't score in the first round, rounds out the top six.
Yep, so really tight across both categories. Of course, we say silver and pro, but we have seen so many times this season and in years gone past, a silver driver can very easily be right in the thick of the fight at the front of the field. Just because you've not been designated that pro marker does not mean you are not a top driver.
It's very true, and many of those that we've got, like Dominic Blyer, for example, within pro, come out of the silver class. So the quality at this level generally is very high indeed. You know, these aren't people doing this for a bit of fun of an evening. These are serious, proper sim racers, and it's one of the good things about the SRO championships, that the quality across both classes, across all the championships, is very high indeed.
Yeah, we've had a great season so far. As we mentioned at the top of the show, this is the fourth race of fifth. We'll be going to the final round on the 23rd of August at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. But here, right now, today, is a big opportunity for many of our drivers to make a massive inroad into their championship standings with a good result. We've just done the 24 hours of Spa-Francorchamps. We've had plenty of drama at Spa, and now it's the turn of the SRO Esports Mobileye GT World Challenge Esports Europe Sprint Series. Say that one twice quickly. For our drivers to put on another beautiful show here on the GT World YouTube channel. And David, with 35 points up for grabs in this race, it's critical to get big results, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, there's also that point for pole position. in each class as well. We've had within Pro up to this event 3 different pole position winners, and provisionally pole for this race has gone to Nicholas Hauben with the Mercedes AMG GT3, so he gets the bonus point, as it were, for pole position, and illustrates how competitive it is by being that 4th different pole position driver. So let's have a stroll down the grid then. It is Nicholas Hauben on pole position. As you see, the cars, they're all lined up good to go, but how about that for second? Wojtek Fiala, the best of those out of silver, ahead of in 203, another of the silver class drivers, Marco Jonkers, at the front of the grid, so out qualifying almost all the pros bar one. That is very impressive indeed. Dominic Blyer is going to go from 4th on the grid, 5th after the qualifying session. It's where you find Dennis Schoeniger, and lining up 6th will be Eric Dalfante with the Honda. That's another of the silvers. 7th on the grid, number 55 is Luke Whitehead. Starting 8th is going to be 92. That's the Mercedes of Michael Tauscher. Behind him it is Bastian Richter, and then number 29 is Tommy Razier rounding out the top 10. And again, he's done a good job as a silver, getting up towards the pointy end of the grid ahead of Lewis Fleischer. And then the Lamborghini, number 60 of Dario Yamulo. We've got 95, which is going to be hustled along by Charlie Crossland, another of the Lamborghinis, just ahead of Kamil Pawlowski. Then Tico van der Velde, 3rd in the championship, a race winner, but way back on the grid, 15th, 16th, another of the race winners, Maciej Malinowski. So watching some of these drivers power away through is going to be worth watching. Max Wojtyla will be next, ahead of Mikhail Statsenko, 2nd in the championship, only 18th on the grid, ahead of Nicholas Anker, and then Nils Klinkmüller. Starting next on the grid is Grantas Karachas, another man quite a long way back on the grid, as is David Tonitza, 22nd. 23rd, Luca Losio. It's almost like a reverse grid race, this. Valentin Barrier from silver, 24th on the grid. 25th is where you find number 35. That is another of the pros, Maciej Tiszkiewicz. Next will come Michael Romagnoli out of the silver class. 27th on the grid, number 54, that is Leon Otocki. 28th, BMW, Sebastian Apostol. And 29th, another of the BMWs, which is Daniel Tillich's car. 30th is going to be 993, Samuele Villa in one of the Ferraris, ahead of number 13 of Oscar Tringali. Then you've got 65, Daniela Cherepenin, and 75, again out of the pro class, George Boothby. Yes, that's right, 33rd, George Boothby, championship leader, way back. But he has outpaced Leo Boulet, who's going to go from 34th. 35th on the grid is number 39 of Jaroslav Honchik. Then 36th, there's going to be number 4, 38 of Luke Southall. 37th will be number 41, and that is Jeffrey Ritchie, quite a long way back on the grid. And then after him, we have number 121 of Alberto Garcia. 73 comes next, namely Andrea Beato. 40th, we're nearly done, is 27, Octavio Araujo Pitco. And 41st to round out the grid, 812, and that is Leon Hopper.
Beautiful lineup of names and talents. 41 cars, a circuit that numbers about 5.1 kilometres in length and 15 corners. This is going to be a busy racetrack, and anybody that's watching SRO Esports for the first time, first and foremost, a big hello to you. Quick idea of what we've got ahead of us. This is a 60-minute race. It has a mandatory pit stop. Drivers must head down pit lane in the mandatory pit stop window, serve their stop, which is 1 litre of fuel, get back out onto the racetrack again. So this is very much a blast to the checkered flag with a little bit of strategy involved on a circuit that you can overtake in a field that has been very tightly compact in qualifying. You could be first or 21st in the blink of an eye, David, in this race. It really is that close and that open.
And it's also, with the Mercedes arena, the first sequence of corners, tight right, a hairpin effectively, and then into a left, into a tight right. It's full of pinch points, and we seem to say this at every round, at every circuit that we go to with esports, and indeed in the real world these days, that if you can survive the first couple of corners, then you're in the fight, aren't you? But it would not be a surprise to see some of that leading group, having done all the hard work in qualifying, end up in somebody else's strife at the first corner and being innocently tagged into dramas. So keep out of trouble, and then you can start to plan your race.
Yeah, absolutely right. We've seen this many times. We saw it at the 24 Hours of Spa last time out. George Boothby, championship leader in the silver category by a long, long way. Contact in the opening lap, dropped himself all the way down the running order and into a DNF. So even the very best of the drivers in SRO Esports are not immune to getting wrapped up in somebody else's incident. So a lot of this is, you don't want to be going into it too conservative, because almost that causes an accident in on itself. But you just need to be the right level of aggressive, and that's not the easiest of tasks for these drivers.
Now, come on, let's get this George Boothby elephant out of the room. Why is the championship leader so far back on the grid that he needs binoculars to see the start? It's been a dreadful qualifying, and there doesn't seem to be an obvious reason for it. What's the thinking?
That's very true. I mean, Boothby, as we know, is a talented driver. We've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Ferraris in this field, and he's only ahead of one of them. That suggests to me that's a bad session for Boothby, but the Ferrari, David's just struggling for pace around this circuit.
And they're 5 kilos lighter under the balance performance tweak, so either it's not enough or there's something fundamental that the 296 does not like about the Nürburgring. In the real world, on the Nordschleifer, it won the 24 hours earlier on in the year, but let's see what pans out in esports over the next 60 minutes. As Paul has been explaining, there is this mandatory pit stop, and that's part these days, isn't it, of how you can win or lose the race. If you pit at the wrong time, you might try and use it to get out of traffic, but if you end up rejoining the race in traffic, as we saw in the opening round of the series at Monza, you can give the advantage to the opposition.
Yeah, we've seen this many times this season and in seasons gone past. There's always a thought process behind what you want to do coming into this race, when you want to make your stop, how you expect it to pan out. But like any good motor race and any good plan, you get it, you write it down, you study it, and as soon as the lights go green, you screw it up and throw it in the dustbin, because you've got to react to what's happening with the 40 other cars around you. And those who react the best, and those who are the most aggressive in their strategy, are likely the ones that'll reach the checkered flag first. David, as they're coming through the chicane now on this formation lap, so over to you for the start, sir.
We are ready to go then for round 4 of the Mobileye GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship. It is on the inside line, number 22, the Mercedes of Nicholas Hauber. On the outside line, the man that scored the bonus point in silver for taking class pole position, Wojtek Fiala. And don't forget that he has also been a race winner last time out. So confidence is up. 3 different winners in pro. Could we have a 4th in the person of Nicholas Hauber? We're about to find out then as they accelerate their way up towards the line. The lights go green, it is blast off. Hauber makes a good start. The Mercedes will lead on the run down towards the first corner, but Fiala in the Porsche stays absolutely alongside him. Also looking good on the brakes, Dominic Blyer in the very brightly nosed Mercedes. He gets hung out to dry though on the outside line, and a really brave dive at the inside there from Marco Jonkers in his silver class Mercedes, as he managed to get himself up into second at the expense of Fiala. No, not quite. So Hauben leads, and he also leads pro, and then second and third overall, Fiala ahead of Jonkers, and then 1-2 within silver.
I will say though, Fiala was very, very lucky to not get his nose chopped off on that Porsche. He had to get out of the incident. That cost him a little bit of time and gave Marco Jonkers a bit of insight and opportunity. And remember, Jonkers and Fiala are racing in the silver category, so this is not only a fight for the podium, but a fight for the front of the class. As Dennis Schoninger looks like he's coming under a little bit of pressure in that Williams Mercedes eSport as well.
He does indeed, as they drop then now down through the Dunlop curve. The right-hander at the foot of the hill, and then it's a steep climb. You need to drive off that corner, don't go too wide, 1 or 2 are, and just skimming the gravel on the outside line. So at the moment, Schoninger goes through, making a little bit of progress, then up into 5th spot. But Nicholas Hauben trying to get away, as now, look, the Marco Jonkers Mercedes comes under attack. Dominic Blyer tries to go right round the outside, elbows out, outside for the first part of the Schumacher S's, inside for the second, job done. Dominic Blyer goes through, gains a place overall, and inadvertently has just given Wojtek Fiala a really clear ride, because he's now boxed in Fiala's class opposition.
Yeah, very brave bit of manoeuvring there. We see Schoninger flashing the lights as well, trying to get that silver class Mercedes out of his way, because he knows he needs to sprint now and not allow our race leader Nicholas Hauben to get detached at the front of the field. But good bit of driving there. Further down the running order, Dominic Blyer now is up into second in the pro classification, and further back as well we've got a bit of a squabble. Callum Pavlovsky making moves as Tinko van der Velde into 17th position, and who's that running down the running order? It's in a bit of trouble. It's going that fast, I can't say. Sebastian Apostel.
Yeah, Van der Velde needs to get on with the job, doesn't he, as others get squeezed way out wide there. Look, going through the Mercedes arena, the Ferraris, the Hondas, the Lamborghinis, Mercedes, they're all busy squabbling, illustrating how competitive individual brands are. Bastian Richter in number 58 Mercedes gets all sideways, causes mayhem as people scatter left and right in avoidance. I think more or less people have avoided him, but that got all very difficult indeed. Kamil Pawlowski, one of those delayed in the blue Audi there. So another real shuffle around coming out of turn 2.
Yeah, Pawlowski leading. Look at this pack of cars. We're seeing some squabbling as well. The Lamborghinis further down. They're running up. I can't quite make out on my rather blurry screen who that is, but we've got a real pack. And this is the danger, David, in the opening stage of this race. Everybody's close together, trying to squabble for position, and you just got to balance, haven't you, between being aggressive and making moves, but staying out of trouble. One of these cars in this big Geigo makes a mistake, and suddenly you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cars piling into it, and then completion of the race is completely changed.
Absolutely right. So, I mean, actually, given what we were fearing at the start, we got away without too much drama over the opening few corners. They're going through in 9-1-2 is Grantas Carreras. Now, he has got some work to do from further down the order as well, in 18th place at the moment, as on the outside line there, going a little bit wide. Luis Fleischer is in the thick of the battles. Fleischer trying to make progress as well. Don't forget, he's another out of that increasingly competitive silver class. Tries to make a move up on the inside line, coming into the chicane, and the leaders in the meantime come off the last corner up to the timing line. So at the end of this second lap, it's going to be Nicholas Hauben in the lead then, with in second place Wojtek Fiala lapping slightly quicker, and then Dominic Blyer lapping quicker than the pair of them. So Blyer in third place now, look, hunting down the top two.
Yeah, good stuff as well. Further down, Dennis Schoninger's moved up into fourth position. He is a little charge now between Yonkers and Luke Whitehead. Whitehead in the Porsche has the inside line, keeps the inside line nice and tight. And I think a little bit further back, Yonkers is offline, so he's under pressure again. Who's that? That is one of the Unicorns. Look at that, Bastian Richter behind, trying to buy into this one as well. So good bit of driving further down as the Silvers and the Pros are starting to mix themselves up a little bit now, and the Silvers maybe at this stage thinking, David, it's probably just not worth getting involved in this fight and let your pro drivers through.
I think that Mercedes might have been Michael Tauscher who was getting in on the act, and you're right, he's made progress. So some of the Silvers now starting to address the need to pick their battles. I'm slightly intrigued as to what's going wrong for Yonkers, because don't forget, he was third on the grid, he made a decent start, but now it's starting to unravel, and the danger is, I suspect, that he gets put off his stride, loses one place, and that affects his mental state, his rhythm, his concentration, his confidence, and it all, for a lap or two, unravels around him. But certainly we've seen Yonkers dropping back. Up front, Hauben to Fiala, 0.6 of a second, the margin between the top two. But really, it's Hauben to Blyer that we need to be looking at, because they're the 1 and 2 within the Pro class, and that's nearly 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, that's a big gap here at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, especially in a 60-minute race. And let's have a little look further down the running order at some of the big names to see if they've won or lost. David Knitzer, fourth in the championship, is running in 21st position for the Automobile Lamborghini Esports team. Valentin Barrier up to 23rd in the 72 Ferrari, so a relatively solid start for him. George Boothby, 28, so a few places gained off of the line for the number 75. That's a good result at this point in time. But again, just like we're saying, these opening laps are more about positioning yourself for the race further down the road, but I'm sure there'll be some confidence taken from better results there.
Trouble is, he's got to get into the top 10 as far as the championship is concerned. His main rival is Mikhail Statsenko, who drives number 149. Statsenko's 15th overall, but take some of the Silvers out, at least he's in the points. So he and Boothby come into this joint on points. It's advantage Statsenko at the moment, so Boothby knows this is going to be a tough 50-plus minutes remaining.
Yeah, but of course Statsenko's very much made his name this season through consistency, not outright headline results. He's never gone in there and dominated the race. So for Statsenko, he's just going to work his way up. Boothby, we know, perhaps has a higher ceiling than Statsenko, so maybe he's going to try and extract some of that pace. But again, he's not avoiding dramas. He's not invulnerable to get in a big no score, and that's what you can't afford at this stage in the season. You need to maximise every position, every point possible. And remember, the top 15 pace points, 35 down to 1 for 15. So every place you can gain is an opportunity to move forward.
So squabbles continue as Bastian Richter tries to get a wriggle on. Don't forget that he has been one of the other rapid drivers within Pro, and at the moment he is crawling all over the back of the traffic there as the field once more accelerates up then towards the chicane. We've got the climb up to the Schumacher S first of all, but Bastian Richter making a bit of a run now to see what he can do about the Audi of Kamil Pawlowski ahead of him. Pawlowski's all ragged over the curb. Now towards the final long looping right up past the hotel on the left they come. In theory, this would be a part of the circuit where the grunt and go Mercedes should have the horsepower to get past Pawlowski in the Audi, but let's see. Pawlowski for the moment is able to defend, moves across to the inside line, covers off the inside, heading all the way down towards turn 1, and he's able to protect that place coming into the Mercedes arena with catching up behind them now, number 29, and that is Tommy Razer, having one of his better showings in the silver class at McLaren.
Yeah, this is a good bit of driving from these. Pawlowski's getting all the inside lines covered. He knows he is vulnerable to the Unicorns of Love car of Bastian Richter behind, and Richter knows this is not going to be an easy task to overtake Kamil Pawlowski. We know how good Kamil Pawlowski is. He's been a quality driver for many, many seasons in SRO Esports competition and others. So that's going to be a fascinating one to keep our eye on. Michael Tauscher, who we're looking at now in the similarly liveried Mercedes car number 92. He's got Luke Whitehead very firmly in his sights, and Whitehead in 5th position, the second of Porsches in this field. So Porsche showing strong opening speed in this race, but the question is, does Tauscher have enough to get alongside and eventually pass that 55 machine ahead?
And Luke Whitehead 17th in the championship within Pro, so very much having his best showing of the season thus far as we nudge towards the completion of the first 10 minutes of the race, still with a good effort being made by Hauben up front. Remember, he's not had a victory this year, so he's running in exalted company, as it were, and he's doing a good fight, good job keeping everybody else behind him.
Yeah, really solid job for Nicholas Hauben so far. Just under 8 seconds advantage from Wojtek Fiala, as once again Tauscher very close through the chicane, coming in to the final corner. Defensive line taken, defensive line achieved by Luke Whitehead. That's going to compromise him for the run onto this back straight. And David, this is a big opportunity now for Michael Tauscher to try and at least get a little bit close into that Mercedes arena in front of the home fans.
Ideally, what he wants to try to do is force a mistake then out of Luke Whitehead as they brake for turn 1. Hard on the brakes, and the Porsche does go a little bit deep. That gives the Mercedes the chance to challenge on the outside. No, it does not, because he just doesn't get the grunt out of the corner, doesn't get the traction. So the Porsche had better bite. Days ahead through turn 2, which gets you into this tightening arc through turn 3, and then it's another sharp corner, but you can go right this time at 4, back on the power, and if you can protect your place all the way through the Mercedes arena, you've done well. So it means that Whitehead is ahead, and Tauscher has to have another think about how he can unseat that 911 ahead of him. So far, he has failed to crack the answer, and he's got Marco Jonkers behind him, trying to come back at him.
Yeah, this has got the air of inevitability about it, I think. Luke Whitehead is fighting a rearguard action. There's no real pace in comparison to those around him in that Porsche at this moment in time, and it's very much a defensive game from Whitehead. And the problem is, and we've said this and seen this so many times as well, if you're as heavily defensive as Luke Whitehead is at this moment in time, you're just hemorrhaging lap time to the cars in front and the cars around. It's almost, David, probably a better play just to let that faster car past and concentrate on your own performance, isn't it?
Yeah, you might be right, actually, as you again see this fight going on for 5th and 6th. George Boothby update, he's up to 24th now from 33rd on the grid, so he is chipping away and he is closing on 993 Samuele Villa in another of the Pro class Ferraris, but there's still an awful lot of work to be done for George Boothby. As you see then, 24th, he's pressing on, he's closing on Villa, and given his ability, it shouldn't be long before Boothby gets up and passes, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that the car seems a little bit more alive in race conditions than we saw in qualification. Little Boothby makes a massive mistake, clouts the inside curb, goes doing the grass cutting. Can he get the car? Yes, just about gets it back on the track, but he had to do a pretty big catch as it bounced over that curb. And those are the kind of mistakes that lose you championships. Boothby can ill afford any time loss in this race, and that is a massive one today. He's just going from bad to worse for him. I think this is the championship slipping out of George Boothby's hands live in front of our very eyes.
I fear you might be right. That's cost him 2 places. It'd be good to have a look at that actually again and see what he did and how it all unravelled around him. But it's cost him 2 places. It's made the fight up the order even harder, and it's rare to see people of that quality make mistakes like that. Now, you might say that the Ferrari is a difficult car around here, and he's struggling with it in terms of pace. He's having to wring the neck of it, and there's evidence of it. You have to hustle it on to that level, and a mistake comes. Either way, it's cost him 2 places, and in this sort of snakes and ladders style drive that he's having, he's got to do it all over again.
And the thing is, as well as losing the position and the times, it unsettles you emotionally and mentally as well. It's very hard as a driver when you know you're a quality competitor and you know you're racing for a championship. You expect to be at the sharp end of the grid. So Boothby will have been frustrated for his no score last time out, frustrated from a difficult qualifying, and you start to overdrive the car a little bit, and a mistake like that one, it just compounds and the red mist comes down, and sometimes drivers like Jean Alesi, for example, the red mist is what led them to bigger and better results. But for Boothby, he just needs to calm everything down a little bit and get back into the zone that he needs to be. But unfortunately, it's a 60-minute race. We've only got 46 minutes left on the clock. It's going to be incredibly difficult for him from here.
Number 29 being given a time penalty. That is Tommy Razer. Well, I was just saying he was having one of his better showings, but he's been involved in dramas that therefore pass the penalty on to him. He is running 11th on the road, but you have the time penalty, and that ain't going to go well for him.
Yeah, 10 seconds will be applied, of course, the next time he jumps down pit lane for his mandatory stop. There's a little bit of drama there. Tinko van der Velde says thank you very much. That's an open door I will walk through and take that position away from joint championship leader Statsenko. Statsenko in the Audi at the back of your shot, tries to fight back, but does indeed, actually throws the car to the inside. Van der Velde, will he give him racing room? Statsenko needs to be incredibly careful now. He cannot afford to go to visit the scenery. Statsenko, Van der Velde side by side, and then just in the background, thank you very much, that's the McLaren, and Van der Velde off. Statsenko is through.
Indeed he is, and Van der Velde clatters off the car, loses another place. So 1 up, 2 back for Tinko van der Velde, and again, somebody that desperately needs to be outscoring Statsenko. He's 10 points back in the championship, should have been able to carve through that, Pat, but he made a mistake, as you saw. He ran wide onto the grass and then slithered his way back onto the circuit, couldn't slow down the car for the next corner. So Van der Velde, like Boothby, making a mistake, and it's strange to see, as I say, drivers of this calibre doing this. Interestingly, of course, both of them in Ferraris. Now, that might be a coincidence, but it might be more evidence of how the Ferrari is a hard car to drive around here and how they're really having to get it by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah, and of course the competition is so tight here at SRO Esports in Europe, in the Asia Series, the Americas, and the Intercontinental GT Challenge as well. But if you're having a bad weekend, let's put that into perspective, folks at home. When we say bad weekend, we don't mean hemorrhaging 5 seconds a lap. It's probably 3/10 away from the ultimate pace of the race. But 3/10 is the difference between pole and 32nd on the grid. It's not huge margins, but you've got to maximise everything, David, in this championship. Otherwise, you're going to be absolutely nowhere.
Absolutely so. And of course, the way the point system works, with the waiting for the drivers that take a win, it's very hard if you junk points in one round to be able to make up. Consistency is key. Keeping out of trouble is key, and that is exactly what Michael Tauscher is trying to do at the moment. He drives number 92, which is the Mercedes AMG Esports Team Unicorns of Love entry, and Tauscher at the moment is 6th in the race, but he's 5th in class. Now, put all this into context, Fiala, the leading silver, 2nd overall, his nearest class rival, is only 7th. It's still Marco Yonkers, but Fiala humbling all of the pros bar one. That's an outstanding effort.
Yeah, it really is, and this will do the power of good to Fiala's championship prospects as well. He's currently the silver class leader, 91 points, plays 75 for Valentin Barrier in 2nd position. But Barrier, of course, is having his own dramas a little bit further down. So for Wojtek Fiala, as this race starts to wrap into the second half a little bit later on, he's going to be thinking big picture in championship as well. 2nd, an incredible performance overall, but it doesn't mean anything. He can give up 4 places to the next 4 cars behind him. He'll still be the silver class leader. That's got to start playing into his mind if he's got aspirations of winning this championship.
So there is rather crossed up Tauscher, thumping the curb, losing a place to Yonkers. Doesn't affect him in his class, but it does in terms of his race position. And also now coming into the mix, number 71 there, Del Fanti in the Italian job, Honda NSX. They come up across the timing line.
Yeah, very interesting for Del Fanti as well to be doing a great performance so far, to be running this higher 8th position in the relatively unfancied Honda NSX GT3. So time penalty as well, 15 seconds time penalty has been applied to car 993, and that is Samuele Villa in the Kessel Glitch Ferrari 296. So again, he'll serve that one when the drivers come and make their stop. That's not what you need at this early juncture of the race.
Slightly helps George Boothby because he was chasing after Villa earlier on before he had his curb hopping moment. Boothby will therefore get that place on the pit stops. That said, George is still mired down in 26th place, so he's got a lot of work to do. Now that pit window, of course, not yet open, but the drivers might well be thinking about how they can use it to their advantage, as once more here the fight between Kamil Pawlowski and the opposition comes down the hill. Bastian Richter right up behind him as they brake for the Dunlop curve through that fast right climb up the other side of it. And Kamil Pawlowski and the Audi, well, he doesn't have the overall pace of the rest, does he? But he is the best of the Audi drivers, and he's doing a manful job of hanging on to position.
Yeah, really nice driving, as we come to expect from Kamil Pawlowski, of course, a very talented, very experienced Polish sim drivers, raced for a number of teams and marques over the years, and no matter what car, no matter what championship or platform, Pawlowski's always at the sharp end of the grid, currently in 9th position. Last time around a 53.9, even with the defensive action. That is faster than everybody apart from the top 4 cars ahead. So Pawlowski, if he can just shake off that Mercedes behind, he's got a good chance of getting himself in the picture for the cars in front.
Trouble is, it's easier said than done, isn't it? Because even behind the car of Bastian Richter, there's another long queue of them. So over the line they come. Tommy Razer, admittedly with that Damocletian penalty, he's next in the queue as they go down towards turn 1. And again, Pawlowski comes under attack. Richter is right there behind him. So Richter comes out of turn 1, flicks left then, and he's absolutely committed to finding a way past the Audi. There is no suggestion that Richter might scale back his attack. He goes into turns 2 and 3 now with that gap narrower again. In 7th spot, Michael Tauscher in the similarly liveried Mercedes, and he in turn has got himself again onto the back of Yonkers as he tries to fight back after making that mistake a couple of laps ago.
Yeah, this is going to be big for Tauscher. He needs another good result. As things stand at this moment in time, if the race was to finish now, Michael Tauscher will be put to 6th position in the championship. It's very, very close on points with 52. So every position he can gain in the pro category will be more points towards the championship score, which will give him a bigger opportunity come Barcelona to finish. Ideally, you want to enter a category like this and finish in the top 3 of the championship standings. With everybody so jumbled up in this grid, Tauscher needs to make hay while the sun shines. Although there's the small task of Marco Yonkers and Luke Whitehead ahead, not the easiest of drivers to overtake, and Yonkers of course in the silver category. Tauscher, he needs to clear that Mercedes so he can start nibbling at the back of Whitehead's Porsche.
And also Yonkers then hustling on because he needs to get up through the traffic, otherwise he's got no chance of catching Fiala unless Wojtek Fiala cops a penalty somehow. So there is Yonkers then, 2.03, still on the tail of Luke Whitehead, and more curb being used through the so-called motorbike version of the chicane, the soft chicane. There's a tight, there's a soft, and the GT cars use the soft version. But this battle pack up towards the line then, it is still Whitehead ahead of Yonkers, ahead of Tauscher, ahead of the Honda of Del Fanti next up. We haven't yet touched on the fact that 42 Dennis Schoeniger has done the fastest lap of the race, but Yonkers to the inside line gets his nose chopped off and almost gets a tap in the tail there from Tauscher.
Yeah, this is when you get really good close racing. Yonkers is on the attack now. The pit window was open, so expect to see some cars diving down pit lane. Tommy Reserve was being the first of our drivers to stop. He served that time penalty while he's at it. He will drop down the running order, but it's going to be fascinating to see if that strategy works out versus pitting a little bit further down the road. Don't forget, 18 minutes and 20 seconds in this pit window, but Yonkers now, he knows this is go time. That Mercedes is quick. The Porsche is clearly holding him up. Although they're in different classes, Yonkers is going to need to be aggressive now and has got to force the issue for Luke Whitehead, as we see the Honda and the Mercedes keeping a watching brief behind. Don't discount Michael Tauscher. He fancies this one as well.
Luke Whitehead is now the cork in the bottle, isn't he? Because that car is nowhere near Schoeniger. He's dropped the best part of 4 seconds or so. And now, look, Yonkers seems to have a quicker car, if only he could find the room to get past him. Whitehead is doing a good job in terms of defending, and part of that defence is where the pace has gone, because he's having to go slower, take the more defensive and slower lines to keep the Mercedes at bay. But it does ponder now what would happen were Yonkers to get past. I'm sure he would be able to get away, but Whitehead, in all credit to him, is doing a really good job of defending, because that Mercedes could barely be any closer coming into the chicane.
Yeah, really nice, clean job from Whitehead. Gets a little bit squirrely through the chicane. That makes him vulnerable into the final turn, but he has the line covered. As we're seeing in the background, Tauscher decides he's had enough of this one and gets down pit road. And if you are the likes of Marco Yonkers, I give it 1 or 2 laps. Can't get past, make a pit stop. And David, this is the chance.
To the inside line down at turn 1, he's got to brake very, very late, but also not wash out wide. Whitehead knows that he can stand his ground on the outside and re-attack at turn 2, but isn't able to do it. The Mercedes does go by. So finally, Yonkers has done it, and he teed that up beautifully coming out of the last corner. Arguably, it all started at the chicane, because that was where Whitehead's Porsche got all crossed up. He was a little bit wide going into turn 16, and so come the exit of the corner, it was game on for Yonkers. Now we can see whether that Mercedes can get away, and also what the Honda behind, in the hands of Eric Dalfante, can do about the Porsche.
Right, this is Christmas and birthday for Marco Yonkers now. Because the pit window is here, he has got to push. Let Luke Whitehead continue to be the cork in the bottle, maximise as much speed as possible. He can get out of that Mercedes and build himself a gap, which will give himself a little bit of wiggle room in the pit window. This is perfect for Marco Yonkers. As fast as he can push now, he'll be looking for a gap in which he can return into the traffic. This is absolutely brilliant. And if I'm Whitehead, I'm going to start using that Mercedes in front as a bit of a reference, see if he can try and pull him along. It's that Porsche, they've just got no pace at this moment, although Wojtek Fiala at the front of the field is only 1.5 seconds off the overall lead, so he's having a great race in the number 420.
You might be right in saying Whitehead's got no pace relative to those around him, but he's still 6th. There are lots of people that would give their high teeth to have that lack of pace, wouldn't they, Mr. Tonitzer or Boothby, or the list goes on. Into the pit lane comes Dominic Blyer then, out of 3rd place. So he gives that back to Dennis Schoeniger. And again, this could be a shrewd move by Blyer. Gets himself out of the traffic. In fact, Mick Schoeniger might be in as well behind him. Yes, he is. So the 2 Mercedes come down pit lane together. This is all going to jumble the order very nicely. George Boothby, I think, is yet to stop as well, but he got himself up to 22nd, now made that 20th place. It's slightly tricking us, of course, because the order shuffles with the pit stops. Everybody has to serve a stop, and therefore the order will restore itself as we nudge towards half distance, just under 35 minutes to go now.
This is interesting from Blyer and Schoeniger. This goes against what we've seen traditionally in the European Sprint Series. People tend to come in the middle, second portion of the pit window, so they've obviously elected to come a little bit earlier. They've recognised that there may be a good bit of racetrack that they can return to. So keep an eye on those 2 as this race unfolds. Let's see where they pan out. And again, anybody new at home, where you see the little orange square with the 1 in it, that means they still need to make their 1 mandatory stop. When it goes green, like you can see on Dominic Blyer's name on the timing stack, that means they've served their requirement to make a pit stop. So they'll be the front runners, so to speak, of those that are stopped. But let's see when everything unwashes itself in around 14 minutes time, if that's worked to their advantage. 3rd and 4th position they made their pit stops at.
Paul's absolutely right in explaining what all the greens and oranges and the pit stop numbers mean and all of that, if this is your first time. However, if it is your first time, where have you been? Why is it your first time? Because you've missed a great championship. There's an Asian equivalent, there's an Australian, an American equivalent, I should say, as well, and each hour-long race always delivers great racing. Now, Blyer and Schoeniger back out on track, 22nd, 23rd they were, 23rd, 24th they are dropping 2, so it's going to take a long time to get the order back as it was. We also need to see what the pit stops are going to be like for Halban, for Fiala. So Yonkers right now up into 3rd place, but of course it's a very big gap between him and his class-leading rival of Fiala. Charlie Crossland hustles on, another of the Williams Esports drivers then. and that's going to put up into 4th place now after these pit stops. Dal Fianti in the Honda, and then Dario Iamulo up into 5th in the Lamborghini.
Yeah, it's been a quietly effective drive so far for the Lamborghini Williams driver. Very stayed out of trouble, continuing to hit his marks, relatively solid in terms of lap time as well. Leon Akotke will be looking at in 18th position, another one of the drivers that we've seen much of over the course of the season, even if the results don't quite reflect how competitive Akotke has been so far. He'll be looking for a better weekend so far. 15th position, courtesy of the pit stops. We're looking now at Arnk has come down pit lane, Pavlovsky, Whitehead and Hopper as well. So plenty of drivers are pulling the trigger, David. And this is going to be a critical stage of this race. This is what's going to make or break somebody's event, isn't it? These pit stop strategies. Attacking the pit entry, attacking the pit exit, getting the car back up to speed quickly, and hopefully for you, coming out in clean air as well.
And staying out like Otowski is doing here and being stuck in traffic, he's doing him no favours. He's on the back of Andrea Miato in the Bentley, but why? What's he gaining? He's following him around. Now, if that car's holding him up, he's going to distort the aero, it's going to make his tyres work harder and potentially go off sooner. Yes, get into the pits, get out of the traffic. But the flip side of the coin is that if you do make a pit stop early, you might well be released into a long queue of cars that haven't pitted. So it's not just reading when to come in, it's the knock-on effect of the pit stop time and where that's going to put you as the leading 2 cars now come into the pit lane. So in is overall leader Halban and class leader Fiala for 2nd place.
And that's an interesting strategy. If you're Wojtek Fiala hitting at the same time as Halban, you're not. For me, I would always do the opposite of what the guy in front's doing. There's only a second and a half covering those 2 drivers. If you pit at the same time, you're probably going to exit at the same time. Nothing lost, nothing gained. Surely you'd roll the dice in that scenario and see if you can do an undercut or an overcut and try and at least close that gap a little bit. Even if you've not got the pace, if you're Fiala and you think, I can't match the lap pace of Nicholas Halban ahead, at least if you pit on a different time, you may come out with less or more traffic in front of you and get in that way. So that's a curious decision for our 2 lead drivers.
Now, George Boothby is up into 7th, which sounds really good, except that the reason he's 7th is that lots of people ahead of him have now pitted, so it's a slightly rogue situation. He's on the tail there of Daniel Tillich in the SMP Racing Esports BMW, and George Boothby is pressing on. He knows he's got to try and do some of this hard work before he makes his stop. Also, after those pit stops, the workload continues because he's going to be far down the order. There are 10 more minutes of the pit window remaining, and we're just about at the halfway point here at the Nürburgring. So Boothby comes downhill, 7th. Tillich swings through the right, climbs the hill. 2 very different ways of going GT3 racing. The aero-friendly Spelt 296 Ferrari and the big, almost aircraft carrier-esque BMW, but all of that horsepower carrying it ahead, and he pulls another length, does Tillich, coming up the hill.
Yeah, this is going to be costing George Boothby. Can ill afford to spend too long behind this BMW because, as you say, it's putting wear and tear on the car that's unnecessary, but more importantly, if you're George Boothby and Veloci Esports, it's holding you up from your potential maximum speed. At this moment in time, Boothby needs clean air. He needs qualification-esque laps. Imagine, based on his qualifying result, that's probably not very much use. He needs faster qualification-esque laps in order to try and leapfrog as many cars as possible, because it's an obvious thing to say, David, but it's really worth reiterating for those at home. It's a heck of a lot easier to pass people when they're stationary in pit lane than try to do it on track. So if you can sprint while they're stationary, that's free overtakes. That's an easier way to climb up the field than fighting tooth and nail in the corners and in the braking zones.
It is, but the danger is they then do that to you when you make your pit stop. So your lap times have got to be better than theirs to try to claw back the advantage. Because if your lap times are slower, then they're going to jump you again when you make your pit stop. So, yeah, Boothby needs to be gaining places however he does it, but fundamentally he needs better speed. And that's what, as you've been saying, qualifying did not illustrate. All the Ferraris seem to be struggling. Boothby's more than most. Now, if they can unlock something, if that car changes and changes for the better during the race, if the track comes to the car, then okay, it might be a different situation. Nicholas Halban in the meantime is back on track after his pit stop, so now the stop cycling through, and he has stayed ahead by the look of it of Dominic Blyer, So Blyer is up into second spot. So now, what has happened to Fiala? Fiala has fallen back, look, behind Schoeniger and Blyer. So he keeps his lead, but he's fallen from second to fourth overall after a slow pit stop. And Tinko van der Velde has had a 15-second time penalty added for an unsafe rejoin. So Fiala is the talking point after the pit stops because it was a slow one and it's cost him.
Yeah, that's a big loss for Wojtek Fiala. He came in 1.5 seconds away from race leader that we're looking at now, Nicholas Huber, and he comes back in essentially fourth overall when everything shakes out. Still the leader of the silver category, as you're right to say, David, but that's going to be frustrating for the Porsche driver. I can only surmise that this has come from not being quite as aggressive to get the car down to the pit lane speed limit, or potentially even in Assetto Corsa Competizione. You've got to be millimetre precise where you stop in the box for the software to recognise that you're stationary and you want to take your service. If you miss it, you may have to manoeuvre the car a little bit. That's giving away time, and it's so easy to do. The visual indicators in sim, difficult to see inside the cockpit of the car, and it's very easy to undershoot or overshoot. So that's a real shame for Fiala to have dropped down a fourth overall, but still very much the leader of class. It's car 992, Maciej Malinowski for McLaren Veloci, gets himself a 5-second time penalty as well, down in 21st.
Bastian Richter on a mission, isn't he? Coming over the timing line then, still in the middle of the battle. Past the pits, Porsche fending him off, so this is still the situation with Luke Whitehead keeping the traffic at bay. To the outside line goes Richter. Is that going to work for him? Wide in, tight out, but even if he slingshots up alongside, which he does, that's going to put him only on the outside line for the next corner. This is going to have to be very brave, but it's the longer line, it's not going to work, and so Whitehead fends off Richter once more. Really good driving that by Luke Whitehead. Great positioning of the car, knew exactly which line he needed and worked hard to keep that place.
Yeah, this has been a really intelligent race from Luke Whitehead, actually. It's so easy in those scenarios to start over-defending or to panic or start doing things that you've just not got used to doing in the car at this stage in the race. But Whitehead keeping it calm, keeping it under control, and so far so good. He's holding off Bastian Richter, and he needs to hold him off because that Honda behind is very close indeed, and it's very easy for Whitehead, if he gets pushed off of line or makes a mistake, he's not going to lose one, he's going to lose 2, 3, 4, because they see Kamil Pawlowski as well, not a million miles away. So Luke Whitehead is doing a monumental job in that Porsche, and remember, as you said, David, so far the results have not been very forthcoming for Whitehead and that team, so this is very much nosebleed territory for this squad this season. They'll be desperate to cling on and get the best result they possibly can.
Drive-through penalty for Octavio Araujo Pisco in the ACA Esports Ferrari. So he's made his pit stop. He's down in 37th place, and the drive-through ain't going to help at all. Samuele Villa had a time penalty on the pit stop, 993. That is in 34th place now, the Kessel Glitch Ferrari. And Halban ahead of Blyer, with now Schoeniger up into third. Fiala going through in fourth place, and Michael Taucher is now in fifth as they come across the line.
And look at this one, Samuele Villa, look who is behind. David Tanitsa in 33rd position. He got a good start, moved himself up into the lower reaches of the top 20, and then some kind of drama on the opening couple of laps knocked him all the way down to 38th position. Now he's trying to do the fast and furious through the chicane on the lock stops in that Lamborghini as somebody's coming back onto the race track. That is the BMW we saw a little earlier on. But David Tanitsa, it's feast or famine for the Lamborghini Automobile Esports driver, isn't it? He's either untouchable or absolutely invisible.
And he's having to work very hard, as you say, to hang on to his 32nd place as Samuele Villa goes up the inside line. Tanitsa should be able to fend him off into turn 2 on the inside, which he does. The car that was rejoining after its grassy moment, I think, was the Bentley, wasn't it, of Andrea Miato. And again, there you can see cars running wide. That was the next Mercedes, Leo Boulet, for the Race Esport team getting crossed up. So, up front, Halban to Blyer, 1.2 seconds is the margin. It is still Halban ahead and lapping fractionally quicker, but Dominic Blyer is going after him, and then Schoeniger in third place, again on a comparable pace. So they're in the top 3, and it's all looking very good for Mercedes all of a sudden.
Yeah, it really is. Mercedes 1, 2, 3. Wojtek Fiala is the outlier in the Porsche, top of the silver class in 4th position with Tauscher. Yet another Mercedes in 5th. Luke Whitehead, the second of 2 Porsches in 6th position. Then Mercedes, Honda, Audi and Mercedes once again. So they're the car of choice, it seems, in this competition. But it's not all about the cars, it's not all about the balance of performance. It's also about the execution from teams and drivers. There is absolutely no coincidence to the fact that it's the same teams time and time again at the front of the field, because they know how to put a good race car together, they know how to put a good setup together, and more importantly, they have drivers that can pedal pretty well indeed, as Bastian Richter now is coming under pressure, having made the move and got past Luke Whitehead. Whitehead tries to respond but doesn't have enough racetrack. I don't think he has the outside line. Tried, tested and discarded by Bastian Richter, and once again that is not working for him. But can Whitehead sneak down the inside in the Porsche? He stays with Bastian Richter. Richter will have the inside line for the right-hander. Whitehead tries to cut back again. We've got the Honda in the background trying to get involved, and David, these are painted together.
Absolutely great racing this, and Eric Delfanti with him in the Honda, waiting to pick up the pieces. It's a real pocket handkerchief job this, as Richter stays ahead. Whitehead is going every which way to try to unsettle the Mercedes, but Richter has worked hard to get that place. He's not going to give it up without a fight. Downhill they come then. 19 laps are in the book. Just under 22 minutes of the race to go. Look back from Richter's Mercedes. Turn right, drop downhill, slightly cambered corner on the power, climb the other side of it, and the queue is growing. There's Richter, there's Whitehead, there's Delfante, there's Pawlowski, and then Charlie Crossland in the mix as well. So Kamil Pawlowski hustles on, tries to be part of that group. Now what's happened after the pit stops as well to Mikhail Statsenko, joint championship leader? He's way back in 13th place overall. He's just clinging on to points in Pro, but it's not been a good race for him at all in the Audi.
It's not been a good race, but with such a disappointing qualifying session, I think at this level anybody's got to be grateful just not to have been wrapped up in an incident. If I was Statsenko, I'd be fairly satisfied with that. But as we see this little squabble that we've got going on there, and there is Luke Whitehead going grass tracking, so the grass down at the chicane not faring very well indeed. Whitehead loses the position to Delfante. We've got Kamil Pawlowski behind, trying not to get squeezed out and then proceeding to immediately get squeezed out. He goes off onto the gravel. That opens the door for the Lamborghini Charlie Crossland and the silver class cars of Marco Yonkers and Dario Yamulo as well. So that's not worked out well for Pawlowski. Just what I was about to say is, while they're squabbling, actually Statsenko is glued to the back of them. So potentially he's got a good 4, 5, 6 cars that he could clear if things fall his way in the next 20 minutes. So it's not over yet for Mikhail Statsenko by any stretch of the imagination.
But he needs a bit of luck, doesn't he? Because the BOP in GT racing is designed to make the cars evenly matched, and that means evenly matched. Doesn't mean anybody's got a discernible advantage. So he's going to have to use his racecraft, as anybody is a long way down at the moment, including the likes of George Boothby in 23rd spot. There is Statsenko. So he's running in 12th place. He's almost on the back of Yamulo, but not quite close enough. So again, finding that last 2 lengths or so is going to be very hard indeed, as is finding a way past. My fear here is that he's just going to be stuck in this train to the very end, because the car hasn't got a demonstrable advantage. It hasn't got an extra 2 or 3 seconds of lap pace in it, which you would need to clear that Lamborghini. This is going to be tough.
It's going to be really tough, and Statsenko, he's going to be conscious that he's fighting for a championship, of course. He's not finished lower than 5th position this season, but we've not seen the absolute pinnacle speed from the 149 Audi R8 LMS GT3. The problem for Statsenko, if the race finished as it stands now, Dominic Blyer would be our new championship leader on 80 points. Nicholas Hoban would be in second on 72, and Statsenko, remember he's coming into this one as joint championship leader, would be third, 10 points in arrears from Dominic Blyer ahead. Statsenko needs every single point he can get at this stage, because 10 points, 35 up for grabs in the final race, from a driver that's not won a race yet, David, that's a big ask. Statsenko needs this desperately.
You're not wrong, absolutely so. Warnings being given for Maciej Malinowski, as they're going very wide is the Audi. That's down at turn 1, so that is 149 of Mikhail Statsenko. Now, has he managed to find a way through up past the Lamborghini? So behind him now is number 60, so he has got past Yamulo. Job done. He's up into 11th place. it doesn't actually affect things in terms of points, because that's a silver that the pro has got himself ahead of. He needs to go after Yonkers. Now, Yonkers is another one that's really dropped back on the pit stops, because there he was pre-pit stop in 6th. He's now only just in the top 10, so he's been another one that's lost out within the pit window. We've got a yellow flag being shown as the cars drop downhill. Yonkers currently 9th, the Dutch driver, but Statsenko, having cleared the Lamborghini, has got the bit between his teeth.
Yeah, Marco Yonkers dropping like a stone, relatively speaking, at this moment in time. 3rd still in silver, but 9th overall. Remember, started on the 2nd row of the grid, did the Mercedes driver. So Marco Yonkers not having a great time of it in the second half of this race. But again, it's all about the silver category positions, as Eric Del Fanta that we're looking at now for the Italian job, SRO number 71 car. 7th in class, 2nd overall. But there's no one in silver that could touch that man Wojtek Fiala up in 4th position, and still churning out lap times the equal to, if not better, than those cars ahead of him. That's such a drive from Wojtek.
Yeah, his last lap was a 53.6. Now here, Eric Del Fanti, who is now 2nd in silver, he was fractionally quicker last time, but it's too big a gap to make up in 17 minutes, I would have thought. This is Wojtek Fiala, who now just has to bring it home. If he's picking his battles properly, if he's reading the race as he should, he doesn't care about Schoeninger ahead or Tauscher behind him. He just needs to keep out of trouble. He needs to know where he is, he needs to know where the opposition is, and now not make mistakes. I know it sounds simple, but that's relatively all he has to do for a 2nd victory of the season. And it's been quite the season for him in terms of results in silver. He got a 3rd at Monza, then a 2nd at Paul Ricard, and then a win at Spa. 3-2-1, easy as that. And having had this taste for a win, he aims to have another one here at the Nürburgring.
Yeah, it's a real test of driver mentality, though, isn't it? When you're leading comfortably in your category, but you can see the overall podium just in front. It's a real testing of mental fortitude to not push and try and get on the tail of the 42 and start getting involved in a little bit of squabble and maybe causing yourself dramas that you don't need to. Eric Del Fanti that we're looking at now in 7th, Bastian Richter having a bit of a quiet race, it's fair to be said. Is Richter in front, currently holding on to 6th overall, 5th in the pro category. But a good drive this from the Honda. It's always good to see marks that we see less of in the top end of GT3 competitions. It's always good to see a Honda at the sharp end of the grid, and Eric Del Fanti doing good work so far to stay very much on the back of the Unicorns of Love driver, and actually, David, at this juncture, maybe even a tad faster.
That's Nicholas Halbert, who is well clear now, 3 seconds to the good. Just quickly, I may have dozed off. Answer me what happened to Luke Whitehead, because before the pit stops he was 5th. He's now down in 14th place. Now, was that purely a bad pit stop, or has he had a moment somewhere that we've not seen? But he seems to have hemorrhaged a lot of time.
Yeah, it really does. That's a disappointing run for Whitehead down in 14th position. Although he's close to the cars in front, there's a lot of machinery between himself and places further up. Incident, by the way, between car 17 and 13 on lap 12. A 5-second time penalty for car number 17 for unsportsmanlike behaviour. That's Michael Romagnoli that receives that time penalty. And also Maciej Malinowski has 5 seconds down in 18th. And Malinowski with a red number next to his name is becoming a recurring theme in the series. The seems like bad luck drama follows that guy around.
Absolutely right. As Luke Whitehead then is trying to recover, Maciej Malinowski goes through in 18th place with his time penalty applied. So the Veloci Esports car goes into turn 3, and Malinowski stuck in traffic here. He's on the back of Luca Lossio with another of the Automobili Lamborghini Squadra Corsa entries. Again, a Lamborghini that's just not come alive. Italian cars on German soil not having a great day, let's face it, because both Ferrari and Lamborghini as brands are really up against it. Look, George Boothby, after the pit stop, still only 22nd.
That's almost unheard of in this competition. In fact, Malinowski now has really got a good run on Lossio. Lossio goes defensive. Malinowski looks to the outside line. That's not going to really work, I don't think, although he does rub wheels a little bit with the Lamborghini, but it's a big old car, that Huracan GT3, and it just about holds the line so far. And Maciej Malinowski, he knows that he's going to have 5 seconds applied to his time. He needs to clear that Lamborghini and just try and claw as much back as possible, but I fear, David, it's all going to be for nothing because they're too far away from the points-paying positions at this juncture.
Absolutely, and for a lot of drivers it's going to be interesting to see their mindset after this as to whether they come back for the final race of the championship. Looking at the entry list for tonight, for example, there are a whole host of non-starters, including Darren McCormick, who's had a torrid year and I think has probably decided enough is enough. But for some drivers like George Boothby, if they can't win the championship, if they drop too far back, are they going to return? Well, hopefully Boothby will be able to stay in the contest. It's going to be really interesting to see how many drivers we have going to that last round in each class, still in with a chance of winning the championship, because it promises to be a great showdown. Here, tapping the tail from Marco Yonkers to Charlie Crossland. Crossland's race has really improved. He didn't really sparkle, if you like, before the pit stops, but he's got on with the job and has chipped away and chipped away. He's won in an Italian car who has made progress. In fact, he's the best placed of anybody in an Italian car.
Yeah, exactly. This goes to show that you can find pace in that Lamborghini. Crossland's had a undramatic event, not really any dramas, not any peaks and troughs, just gone about his business, stayed out of trouble, put in decent lap times, made the moves when it's necessary. An 8th position so far is a fabulous performance for the number 95, and that'll do Crossland a lot of good for his confidence. He'll know where he is relative to the other Lamborghini cars, relative to big names like Luca Lazio, like David Tinitza. To be in front of those drivers, you know you have done a good job, and so far so good. But then again, saying that one, he's still got Yonkers and he's still got Statsenko very, very close behind, so Crossland's got plenty of work to do in the next 12 minutes. And as we well know, David, when getting to the last 10 minutes, that's when things tend to get a little bit spicy in the field as desperation begins to sink in.
Nicholas Hauman, second last time out at Spa, but he's found something, hasn't he, in that Mercedes that is leaps quicker than Dominic Blyer or Dennis Schoeninger's cars, because he's now got this advantage that last time around was 3.8 seconds. It's hovering around that 3.6, 3.8 margin. Charlie Crossland dances out of the chicane. It looks great, that Lamborghini, in those colours of Gulf livery on it as well. He's got Marco Yonkers behind him, so 8th and 9th they come. Statsenko is still 10th. He's going to, of course, wriggle clear of George Boothby in terms of the championship, but at the same time, he then jumped by others. Dominic Blyer second at the moment. Now Blyer doing his level best to go after Hauman for the race lead. And Statsenko deep into turn one. Can't get away with that, can he? Yes, he can, but he loses time.
Yeah, you've got to be careful making moves like that one. That makes you vulnerable to the cars behind, vulnerable to being spun around if you're not too careful, because obviously, again, these cars are running so close. The lap times, the pace, the quality of the drivers is so similar. You make a big mistake like that one, it's very easy for someone to compile driver into the back of your car, and suddenly Statsenko's difficult day could turn into an absolute disaster. As we're looking now, incident between 55 and 95 on lap 22, a 15-second time penalty has been given to Charlie Crossland for that infringement. So, a great race, David, in 8th position, might well end up being all for nothing.
Yeah, it's a big shame that, isn't it, for Charlie Crossland, because the pace was good and he's worked hard to get the car up there. So it illustrates as well that it's not just about having a quick car. You've got to keep out of trouble. You've got to make sure you don't make any mistakes, drive sensibly, drive safely. Nicholas Hauman is doing just that. He's the fastest driver within the race and comes using lots of curb through the chicane, but all of that is helping to build the gap over this man, Dominic Blyer, who in turn has got Dennis Schoeninger not that far behind him into turn 16. It's Mercedes 1, 2, 3, and then it's Porsche 4 leading the way within class.
Yeah, 3.6 seconds is the advantage held by Hauman at the moment, but Dominic Blyer's not given up yet. He's still lapping very quickly, about a 10th of a second away last time around, slower than Hauman, but trying to keep the 22 in front on his toes, trying to apply the pressure as much as possible. But the man on the charge at this moment in time is Dennis Schoeninger. He's inching closer, a little bit slower last time around, but the gap to himself and Dominic Blyer is reducing ever so slightly. I fear with 9 minutes on the clock, there's not enough time to really do anything about it. But what Schoeninger wants, he wants to apply as much pressure as possible to give himself an opportunity to get into that window to attack in the final stage of this race. But Blyer, concentration on that man's face suggests he's not phased and he's just going about his business, stroking us home to the flag.
He's going to score points, he's going to bank points, Dominic Blyer, and put himself then into the lead in the championship. But the driver that's going to come out of this also as a dark horse going into the last round is Hauman, because Nicholas Hauman was 8th before the race started, and if things stay as they are, he's going to be 3rd in the championship now, and with a realistic chance of winning it. points behind Blyer and 2 points behind Statsenko. Good fight going on here. Luca Lossio is in the thick of it, number 19 with the Lamborghini. There's Maciej Malinowski ahead, and there is the Porsche of Nicholas Arnke tucked up behind him. 8 minutes and change on the clock, and this is as big a fight as you'll find anywhere.
Yeah, really nice little squabble now. Lazio will be frustrated indeed to be down in 18th position. We've got a 30-second time penalty, by the way, for car number 7 for causing a collision. That's Leo Boulay in the race Esport team Mercedes. So Boulay, 30 seconds will be applied to his time at the end of the race, which pretty much writes off any prospect of a half-decent result during this race. And that just shows you, doesn't it, David? You don't want to get involved in an incident because obviously it's not going to help your race performance. We've got live stewards here watching every transgression these drivers make. You've got to be fast. You've also got to be respectful and fair as well on the racetrack. And often in the heat of battle, that can be quite difficult to achieve for some of these guys and girls.
Absolutely. That's what I was saying earlier on. You've got to be error-free, whether it's in terms of driving standards or in terms of the regulations for that pit stop. It's as much keeping out of trouble with officialdom as it is with the opposition on track. So the leaders have gone through. The clock is ticking on down there, just over 7 more minutes in this penultimate round of the championship to go. A word about Eric Delfanti and the Honda, set for second in silver, which is a very, very good result because he has been nowhere all year. And there is the Honda, still looking competitive then on the back of Bastian Richter. He's trying to get himself closer, if he can, to Wojtek Fiala for a class win. That I can't see happening in less than 7 minutes, but we don't see enough of Hondas in GT racing, virtual or real, and we certainly don't see enough of them up at the pointy end. So well done, Eric Delfante.
Yeah, really, really good performance. And it's like you say, he's been nowhere all season, and all of a sudden we've come to the Nürburgring, that car's come alive, and it's not just a case of putting a good qualifying lap, staying out of trouble. The car's got speed. He's all over and has been for a number of laps, the back of Bastian Richter's car. So we know that Honda is showing great pace in the entirety of the stint. Delfante's not giving up at all. He's not made any significant mistakes that I've seen during the course of this race. So really, really good drive from the number 71, and second in class will be a more than ample reward. But if I was Bastian Richter, I don't think I'd be taking my eye off that rear view mirror anytime soon, because I think that Honda's got designs on an overall top 6.
Might well do, and actually there's an argument to say that Richter could let him go because he's not going to catch Tauscher ahead of him. So why keep defending? Why put yourself in jeopardy and risk contact or risk making a mistake and flying off the road? So again, Bastian Richter needs to, we keep saying it, but it remains true, pick your battles. And at the moment, this is a battle he doesn't need to be in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, especially when Charlie Crossland behind, the next driver in the line has got that 15-second time penalty. You are beyond safe, barring some kind of bizarre drama. So Bastian Richter would do very well indeed, just to let that Honda go, not worry about it. It's not a problem for him in his championship charge. It removes the risk factor of a driver that's in a position maybe he's not that familiar with in this championship and is hungry for the position. Take the risk factor away, minimise the chances for something to go significantly wrong if you're Bastian Richter, and just allow him to run away at the front of the field. In fact, David, we've seen it many times, when somebody makes a pass, they immediately make a mistake and run off track. It might even be an easier way to clear that Honda altogether.
You're probably right about that, but for the moment, Delfanti not suggesting he's going to drop it. The car's got good pace. I mean, here he comes. He's going to, again, not necessarily pick the right battle. He wants to get through. He's trying to force a mistake out of Richter. He could afford to sit there and just take second in class, but the racing driver in Eric Delfanti kicks in. 4 minutes and a bit on the clock. He wants to get ahead of that Mercedes. He's absolutely focused on doing so. And right now, Richter isn't for making a mistake. That means, therefore, that Delfanti's going to have to do it himself. He's going to have to do the hard yards. He's going to have to do it on racecraft and on pure pace.
Yeah, and if you're Eric Delfanti as well, you're probably thinking, well, I've got no chance in the championship. I'm nowhere in the title standings. When am I ever going to be 7th again at a race like this? It could be next week, it could be never. So this is a chance for a top 6 overall at the highest level of esport competition. Go for it. It is better to go down in flames as someone trying than it is just to hold station. So if I was Eric Delfanti, I would be pulling the pin and taking every single opportunity to get that top 6.
Well, this man is in the hunt for the championship right now because Nicholas Halvan, who was 8th pre-race, is now, if the results are an echo of what we are going to have the order now. In other words, no more penalties lurking in the system. He's going to finish the race as the winner. The order around him will be unchanged, and that means that he is going to be 8 points back from the championship leader Mobileye going into the last race. And Nicholas Hauben has driven the absolutely perfect race from the perfect qualifying to catapult himself out of nowhere into the championship hunt. And it's been a remarkable recovery for somebody that was there or thereabouts, to use that phrase, but never looked like a race winner, never looked like a championship candidate up until today. Wojtek Fiala, likewise, steady starts of the season. This is going to be 2 wins on the bounce in silver, whereas in pro, we maintain the record of a different winner in each race. Extraordinary.
Yep, races like today are where champions are born, and Nicholas Hauben, Wojtek Fiala as well, are both laying a very firm stake in the ground for their respective championships. It's all about consistency, but when the time comes, when the pressure is on, and when the opportunity presents itself, that's when you need big results. Big results from big drivers, and for both of those two, this is exactly what they need to do. The confidence, the momentum is going to be with them, as well as the points now coming in to the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. And you know as well, if not better than I, David, that confidence and momentum are so important to drivers. When a field's this tight, any psychological advantage you can get, that goes a heck of a long way.
Does indeed. Wojtek Fiala then goes through. There's going to be this lap and one more, isn't there, before the checkered flag comes out. But Fiala has done a really good job. Fascinating to see how he has progressed over the course of this season, whereas Valentin Barrier, that was the driver that looked really good at the start of the season, he's fallen away a little bit. In pro, Tinko van der Velde, then Maciej Malinowski, then Dominic Blyer, all race winners. Nicholas Hauben is going to add his name to that list and illustrate just how competitive the championship is this season. It's going to be a great showdown, isn't it, for the last round?
Yeah, it really is. And the season deserves it. The SRO Esports Championship so very much deserves a final round showdown that we're going to get at Barcelona on the 23rd of August, right here on the GT World YouTube channel. It's been another sensational championship full of great drivers, great racing and massive drama, and Nicholas Hauben is doing everything in his power to set us up for an absolute ding-dong end to the season. If things are as they stand, Dominic Blyer will go into that race with 80 points as championship leader. Mikhail Statsenko will go into it on 76 in second, and Hauben in third on 72. As close as you would like it to be.
Yeah, because Statsenko gains effectively another couple of points because of gaining a place post-race because of Charlie Crossland's penalty. So in terms of race order, yes, he would get a given number, but that's going to grow once you apply penalties. So what we keep saying about things on the road not always reflecting what the final outcome will be, it's the case again. Nicholas Hauben has driven an absolutely fantastic drive here. Comes now down towards turn 16. He can't really afford to back it off, but he's going to sneak through for one more lap. Look at this, for the sake of about 16 seconds. One more lap as he breaks the beam. Goes through now Nicholas Hauben on the last lap then of this fourth round of the championship. Down towards the Mercedes arena for the last time. You cannot, I don't think, point to anything in this race that Nicholas Hauben has done wrong. It has been wheel perfect through qualifying, through the race, and he's brought himself now into the mix for the championship. Great evening for him.
Yeah, the only mistake Nicholas Hauben has made is to be 16 seconds too fast. Otherwise, he'll be able to knock this lap on the head, because it's always bad when you're a race leader and you've dominated the race. To cross the line with so little time left to go, it frustrates you because it's one more opportunity, isn't it? One more lap at 15 turns for something to take the win away from your cold, hard grasp that Nicholas Hauben has. But I'm sure a driver at his level, racing at this standard, this is nothing more than a final tour, a victory tour, so to speak, for our virtual crowds.
It's like his lap of honour, isn't it, as he comes now up out of that long turn 5 right-hander, powers his way up the hill. He's under no pressure, he's just going to bring it home now, and then he can celebrate a race win. It'll be his first within the championship, and it's certainly been a very impressive drive indeed. Up towards the Schumacher S, then towards the next left-right through the Ad Van Bogen. He will come speed building all the time at this part of the circuit, makes the climb up the hill, goes through the Ad Van Bogen, sets the car up for the chicane, And he's been very spectacular through the chicane all the way through the race, going for the curb, going for the floppy markers. He does it again, but he's the right side of the white line for track limit offences. It is going to be the checkered flag to end round 4 of the Mobileye Esports Championship. It's going to be a first win of the championship for Nicholas Hauben, who comes across the line. Mobileye GT World Challenge Europe Esports Championship round 4 honours fall to Nicholas Hauben, and in silver to Wojtek Fiala, who comes across the line in 4th place overall. Hauben wins from Dominic Blyer 2nd, 3rd Dennis Schoeninger, Fiala is 4th. It is going to be Bastian Richter who takes 5th place. Crossland is going to be across the line for 6th, then it's Yonkers, Statsenko and Yamulo. That means we've had a bit of a shuffle around, I think, on the last lap of the race, but some excellent racing, excellent drives, and the best of the lot comes from Nicholas Hauben.
Yeah, fabulous stuff. George Boothby crosses the line in 16th position. That was a solid recovery drive at the end. For some strange reason, I noted that we had one driver jump down pit lane on the final lap, so I'm not quite sure exactly what happened there. There it is, Michael Tauscher, that drops down the running order. But great driving from every single one of our drivers, and 2 very, very deserving class winners indeed at the sharp end of the grid.
Yeah, Tauscher, I'm intrigued to know about, but it's a good drive by Nicholas Hauben, and he will take race honours then, and as we keep saying, bring himself into the mix for the championship. So excellent performance that by Nicholas Hauben, and great credit to him, not a wheel wrong.
Yeah, and as you say, that's a very difficult task to do when you've got the pace like Nicholas Hauben has, and when you've got the start and the early race lead. It's so easy to talk yourself into a mistake, to think, right, everything's going my way. Don't make mistakes, Nicholas. Make sure you hit your braking point, make sure you hit the racing line, use the racetrack, stay away from the curbs, and it becomes a little bit unnatural almost, the driving experience, because you're overthinking things. So big credit to Nicholas that he stayed calm, let things flow, and then just delivered lap after lap after lap. Great performance, great consistency, and like I say, dominated, if anything, at the front of the field.
Well, from pole position, converted the start into the lead, converted the lead into a gap, and just ticked off the laps, didn't he? He didn't really have to do much defending, certainly after the first couple of laps had been done. So Nicholas Hauben, excellent effort, but really, really impressive indeed for the German driver. And as we keep saying, that really does now throw the championship up into the air, heading for that last race.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen quietly, you can hear the furious tapping of calculators as our team behind the scenes do some provisional maths, which is always scary, doing provisional maths on a live broadcast, to try and just work out exactly where things stand, as we provisionally, of course, well, we're going into this final race at Barcelona. We're going to talk to our 2 class winners as well in a few moments' time, but I know what you're going to say before I even ask you, David, but for you, who's the driver of the race? Who's impressed you the most during this last 60 minutes change?
It's a toss of a coin between Nicholas Hauben and Wojtek Fiala, because both of them, as class winners, have not only driven outstanding races this evening without making any mistakes, but they've also moved on from where they were at the start of the championship season. And if you think that we were pre-season talking about the likes of Boothby or Tunitzer or Blyer as people with great pedigrees, great track records, Darren McCormack another, they're nowhere in the championship, and yet in their respective classes, Hauben and Fiala now are either potential champions or championship leaders, and they've come a long way in relatively short time over the 4 races that we've had. So both of those, really, it's a tough call between the 2, but for those reasons, I think both of them are now looking very, very impressive indeed.
Yeah, I think I'd have to mirror your choices on that one as well. And like I say, an important thing to know, they've progressed over the course of the season, and you want to be coming into form at the end of a year. You don't want to be a Valentin Barrier that came in and everybody's like, right, well, the Silver Championship's his, dominated the first 2 rounds, and then nosedive in form at the end of the year. As things ramp up as the season progresses, that puts you in the strongest position to fight for the race at the end. By the way, same question to everybody in the YouTube chat comments. Let us know who you think the driver of the day is. It'll be fascinating to see what your opinions are. I can see already the Tep Postman. No, sorry, Pete Sven 2311 has said Nicholas Hauben for him is the driver of the day. But please do let us know what your thoughts are down there.
Well, I think Nicholas is ready for interview. He's in the ready to be dragged into the box to be spoken to. and Wojtek Fiala likewise. So hopefully we can hear from our two class winners before much longer.
Right. So let's have a quick word then with Nicholas Hauben, our race winner. Nicholas, congratulations. You are a race winner, sir, and have thrown yourself right into the championship. How do you feel? How did that race go for you? Oh, Nicholas has just joined us now, actually, so I'll say that question again. Nicholas, congratulations on an absolutely superb race victory. First win of the year and right in the championship mix. How are you feeling and how was your race?
Yeah, thank you, first of all. Feeling great. Actually, I'm pretty surprised how it ended up today. I was not feeling confident going into the quali, and yeah, what a quali it was. And then in the race, I had a bit of luck because of the traffic behind me was holding up Dom a bit. And yeah, in the end, I was able to manage. I had actually pretty... I was pretty struggling on tires in the end, but yeah, lucky I just had to manage.
So tell me about what it was like mentally to be at the front of the field for the full duration of the race. How hard was it to stay in the zone and keep the consistency and minimize any kind of mistakes?
It's actually not that different from being in P4, P5, or P10, whatever. It's just you have clean air and don't have any distractions around you.
So we've seen your form obviously is increasing race on race, and you're now provisionally, before all the appeals and penalties are in place, you're third in the standings on 72 points. Dominic is our championship leader on 80. Going into Barcelona, do you think you've got a good chance here of repeating today's performance?
I mean, everything is possible. Historically, Spa and Nürburgring are my two by far best tracks, especially in SRO. Barcelona was not that good in the past, but yeah, everything is possible, I think. If you mess up your qualifying, miss like 1/10, you're 10 places behind. That could happen to me, that could happen to Dom. Everything is possible then.
Absolutely. And before we let you go, Nicholas, is there anything you want to say to any of the fans at home or teams or colleagues that you work with that helped you get to this point?
Oof, a big thank you to everyone who helped me on this path. I think I had a struggling year last year. This year my team helped me pretty much, and yeah, back to the top. Thank you very much for this.
Fantastic stuff. Go and have a good celebration, Nicholas. That was a masterclass in how to race and win in SRO. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicholas Hauben. And as we always see, David, very calm, very relaxed. Job done. Move on to the next one. It's always surprising to see how little emotion these drivers display in the heat of battle.
Yeah, I was just thinking that for somebody that's just absolutely blitzed the opposition, he's remarkably calm about it, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's the professional drivers. And also, let's speak of another race winner that we've now got, Wojtek Fiala, in, who dominated silver and had an outstanding race altogether. Wojtek Fiala, congratulations on a great win. How do you feel?
Oh, thank you very much. Definitely feels great to win silver, but yeah, I'm a bit sad that I couldn't get like overall podium because yeah, it would have looked better, but Max were just too quick for Porsche. But yeah, overall great result.
It's a great race. We saw some great race and some great racecraft from you. But what happened during the pit stop cycle? Because you were comfortably in second position, then came back out in fourth.
Yeah, I got moved a bit in pits, but on the undercut was a bit faster as well, so it overall just cost me time, and then I just couldn't gain it back because yeah, Porsche's tire isn't really that good, unfortunately. But yeah, that's about it.
Now, I think it's fair to say, and these obviously are provisional points, so there are still to be finalised. But you've got 1 3/4 of a hand on the trophy now, heading into Barcelona. What's the tactic coming into the final race of the year?
Win. That's what I'm gonna aim for. Win it again.
So you're still going for the outright victory?
Yeah, that's how I would like to finish the race, finish the season.
That's the talk of a true champion, is that one. And just before we let you go, Wojtek, is there anything you want to say to any of your team or fans or anybody out there in light of this sensational victory?
If there's anybody watching for our friends, thank you for watching, and yeah, it was definitely cool.
Yep, it was a great race. It's thoroughly enjoyable to see a Porsche up there at the sharp end of the grid. So congratulations on another superb performance in what feels like a relentless march to the Silver Class Championship.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Wojtek Fiala is, of course, the winner of the silver category and 4th overall. And David, looking at the provisional points that Ryan Gill has so kindly posted to us in our chat channel, Wojtek doesn't need basically, if Yamulo doesn't win, Fiala's champion.
He's got one hand on the trophy, hasn't he, already, which is mighty with a round to go. It couldn't be closer, though, much in pro, could it? Blyer to Statsenko would be 1 point now with penalties applied. Hauben a further 7 points back. George Boothby 2 points adrift. So he's lost his championship lead, but he's still in the mix for 4th place. And then you've got Van der Velde and Kareches, 53 points apiece. Outsiders, but they're still mathematically in the hunt. It's going to be a great way to end the season. It really is.
Yeah, it really is. We've got, like I say, 4 drivers realistically at the sharp end of the grid in the hunt for the championship. And of course, the next race takes place at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya on the 23rd of August. But going back to this one, this is our photo of the day from the SRO Esports imaging partners Dynamic, which again is another beautiful shot that really does illustrate the drama and the excitement that's unfolded over this last hour, David, doesn't it?
Absolutely so. It's great to see images like that, and well done to Dynamic. Shows everything.